isolated island in the middle of the ocean. It has been the subject of many mysteries and legends. It cost humans 264 years of exploration. A number of victims were killed and huge sums of money were paid for it. It is said to be a cursed island. And people are convinced that the devil is trapped there because of the quarries that occur every time they are close to solving the mystery. But what has kept people searching until today is their belief that there is a huge underground treasure just waiting to be unearthed. On the south shore of the coast of Nova Scotia, Canada, lies a small island of about 140 acres. It is one of 350 islands that make up Mahone Bay, which overlooks the Atlantic Ocean. In fact, from the day the island was discovered, it has been shrouded in mystery. This island is the only one in the entire Gulf with large numbers of oak trees. No one knows if this is the original habitat or if it was planted by humans. That's why the island is called Oak Island. Because the island was mostly forested, most of the island was abandoned, with a small population. One day in 1795 AD, a 16-year-old teenager named Daniel Macinnes went out to hunt on the island. According to his testimony, he said that he saw a strange light coming from the middle of the trees, and when he went to see what the source of this light was, he noticed that there was a spot under one of the trees that looked like a hole. He thought it might be a buried treasure. Especially since people were saying that pirates used to come to this island during the 17th century. And since the famous pirate William Kidd was known to bury his treasures in the ground, there's a chance he could have come across the island and buried a treasure there. So Daniel ran and told his two companions what he had seen, and it made their eyes glaze over. At the beginning of the next day, the three of them went out together with their digging tools, hoping to come back from the trip rich. After they started digging at a depth of about 60 centimeters, they found a group of stones arranged in a circle around the hole, as if there was a boundary. And then they got even more excited. They must be on the right track. And they dug and dug and dug until they reached a depth of 3 meters. And there they found an oak dam cut exactly to the size of the hole. Which meant that someone was actually hiding something down there. The excitement grew and grew. They banged on the wood until they broke it. And underneath, they found another pile of dirt. So they dug until they reached a depth of 3 meters. Surprisingly, they found themselves in front of another dam just like the last one. And that's when they started to realize that it was too big for them. That if they dug any deeper, they wouldn't be able to get out. So they decided to stop digging. And settle for what they had until they could find someone to help them. After 7 years of Daniel and his friends trying to convince anyone who would help them find the alleged treasure, in 1802, they finally reached businessman Simeon Lenz, who, upon hearing the story, formed the Onslow Company, whose main goal was to recover the treasure of Oak Island. And in 1803, they officially started where Daniel and his friends left off. They discovered that every time they went 3 meters deep, they found wooden planks that blocked the road as before, which motivated the people working on the project more and more and gave them hope that the treasure would not be the first or the last. Especially when they found in one of the layers of coconut fibers, knowing that this area does not grow coconuts in the first place. The nearest coconut tree is about 2,400 kilometers from the island. This means that the fibers must have been planted by someone with their own hands. After the coconut fibers, they found a stone with strange symbols on it. And they began to suspect that it had something to do with pirates. They immediately suspected that it was part of the treasure and that it was a stone stolen from Egypt. But what surprised them even more was that the stone had inscriptions in a strange language for the first time. After many attempts to translate it, they came to the conclusion that the meaning of the words written under 40 feet in 2 million buried coins. Although some people rejected this interpretation and said it was just words, the majority considered it a sure proof of the existence of the treasure. At a depth of 30 meters, they found something else. Something like a wooden box. And then he said, "Well, that's it, we've found the treasure. We sleep and dig it up in the morning." When they came back the next day to dig up the treasure, they were in for a big shock. The hole was flooded with an enormous amount of water. And every time they dug it out, it filled up even more. And because they had no equipment to help them solve the problem, they finally stopped digging after they gave up. The company itself dissolved in 1805. After many people found out about the stone and the message written on it, interest in the island and the hole increased to a great extent. In 1849, an expedition with newer equipment was sent out to find the treasure. And this time they were able to confirm that there was indeed a wooden box under the water. What made them even more hopeful was that they found 3 rings from a gold chain. Their first task was to solve the water problem. The first thing they noticed was that the water was going up and down, and they concluded that there must be a source of water in the hole and they had to find it. They started a new excavation until they discovered a tunnel 150 meters away from the hole. And that's the one that supplies the water to the hole. Unfortunately, their joy was short-lived because they encountered the same problem. Every time they drain the water, it comes back up again. This meant that there was another tunnel connected to this tunnel, and there could be more than one of them, all coming from the ocean. So in 1851 they abandoned the idea after they gave up and spent all their money on the search. After the many difficulties the explorers encountered each time they tried to find it, there was a belief among the people that the treasure would not be found until 7 people died. Unfortunately, as of today, the number of victims has reached 6. The first was in 1860. When they tried to dig out with steam-powered pumps, they exploded and one of the workers died. And 37 years later, in 1897, an explorer died for no apparent reason. The most famous accident happened in 1965, when motorcyclist Robert Ristol decided to try it with his 18-year-old son, along with his companion and a group of assistants. On August 17, Ristol's son was surprised to find his father unconscious in the pit. When he tried to go down to help him, he also fainted and fell, and his friends saw them and immediately went down to catch up with them, and he also fainted. The same thing happened with 2 of the helpers, until one of them realized it was carbon monoxide poisoning. Unfortunately, only one of them could be rescued. Restall, his son, his partner and one of the assistants died. Since then, people have been afraid of the island and rumors that it's cursed, and that the person who hid the treasure used satanic rituals to protect it. Other people said the hole was the home of the devil himself. Some people even went a little further and said that there are strange animals guarding the pit and that their eyes light up. In fact, despite all that is said about the island and what happens there, it is not only the visits that Oak Island has witnessed throughout its history. In fact, the expeditions they went on were so many. And each time they discovered a strange piece of artifacts, yet no one ever found the secret of the crater or the alleged treasure. Some strange theories say that the treasure will not appear until the oak trees on the entire island are dead. Strangely enough, all the trees have already died except for one. When the last tree dies, will they really find the treasure or will the whole thing turn out to be a myth? Let us know what you think. But that's it, we're done.